This meeting is being televised live online via the following web address: Millcreek Township, OEM, Facebook. The public will be able to participate in the public comment portions of the meeting by phoning in to 833-1111 extension 380. If the line is busy, please try again. The Board of Supervisors will keep the comment period open until it receives no further telephone calls. This meeting is also being recorded by WQLN and is broadcast on Spectrum Channel 1024 and YouTube.com with closed captioning available. I would also like to add that Supervisors Aulette and Morgan are participating telephonically for this meeting. Next on our agenda, public comment on agenda items other than development or rezoning applications. We'll give the public time to phone in if they have comment on agenda items other than development or rezoning. Okay, hearing no calls, we'll move on to approval of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes from our April 21st, 2020 regular meeting and our May 1st, 2020 emergency meeting that was called. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve both sets of minutes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Morgan. Do I hear a second? Okay, have a second from Mr. Aulette. Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
Mr. Aulette?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Next up, we have the bills. Any questions or comments on the bills? If not, I will call for a motion. Okay, do I hear a second? Okay, thank you, Mr. Aulette. I'll call for the vote. Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
Mr. Aulette?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next up on our agenda, bids and quotations. First up is the COG Joint Purchasing Bid Results and Awards, Public Works. Mr. Snyder?
Good morning. Engineering and Public Works recommend awarding the purchase of Type C number 57 crushed washed aggregate to Erie Aggregate for any aggregate delivered to the township yard with a low bid of $14.25 a ton. Although it is doubtful the township will drive to Tyler, New York for pickup of material, the low bidder for material picked up
Okay, thank you, Gary. Any questions or comments from the board on these quotes? Do I hear a motion to approve the COG purchases as stated?
Chairman, I'll make that motion for the COG purchases.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second to that? Okay, I'll call for a vote on that. Mr. Aulette?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, next up on my agenda is the flange retaining rings, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Snyder, you have that? Okay.
Yes, this is for the sewer department. We are seeking permission to purchase 12 pump flange retaining rings for various sewer pumps in the sewer department. These rings keep the pump against the discharge line in the sewer stations. We asked for quotes and received 3. The first one from XL Tool for $6,720. The second one from WC Wild Company for $11,844. And third from Miller Pump for $16,920. It would be my recommendation to purchase the 12 flange retaining rings from XL Tool at the cost of $6,720, and there is money for the budget in the budget for these items.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Snyder. Is there a motion to approve the purchase of the gasket retention flanges from XL Tool in the amount of $6,720?
Make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. I'll call for a vote on this. Mr. Aulette?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes on that. Next is the Wilkins Run Stream Restoration Design Proposal and Contract Award. Mr. Waldinger?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. We received 2 proposals in response to a request for proposal for design services for the Wilkins Run Stream Restoration Project. That's a project that we are pursuing to meet our sediment reduction requirement under our MS4 permit. The first proposal was from Civil and Environmental Consultants Incorporated, CEC, in the amount of $74,852. And the second proposal was from Ecology and Environment Incorporated in the amount of $142,148. The scope and project understanding were similar between the 2 proposals. We requested an addendum from CEC to include costs for additional items such as construction oversight and as-built survey documentation, which were not included in either of the original proposals. The revised proposal from CEC was for $111,835 with a project start date of May 15, 2020. Township Solicitor has prepared the contract agreement with CEC, which you should have in front of you. It is the recommendation of the Planning and Development Department to award the Wilkins Run Stream Restoration Design Contract to CEC in the amount of $111,835 with the project start date of May
Thank you, Mr. Waldinger. Any questions or comments from the board on this?
Yes, Supervisor Morgan. Mr. Waldinger, my question is, and I know we've been waiting to hear back regarding MS4 permitting process and all that. Have our plans been approved by the DEP yet? They have not formally been approved. We have spoken with them and are doing some administrative corrections that they wanted. But as far as the technical proposals, they've told us that they appear to be fine. We just don't have the official approval for them yet. Commencing this project, will we still get sub reduction credits for it? Yeah, this is just the design phase. So obviously we wouldn't proceed with the construction until we have the approved plan. But yes, the intent is that we would get fed with design credit for whatever we remove from the street. And I can't recall the grants you referenced. So are those the grants we received through Erie County, or is there some other? I can't recall what the original grants were. That is a coastal zone management grant. Like I said, that's money from NOAA that is administered through the Pennsylvania DEP. We got that through the CDM committee, or all us? Yes. Yeah, we were awarded that through the CDM. This was actually a 2019 grant that was just fully funded and the agreement done with us at the end of 2019. Okay. Thanks, Mr. Waldinger. Sorry for my confusion on that. Thanks. Sure.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the contract with CEC in the amount of $111,835?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I will second that motion.
Okay, we have a second as well. Call for a vote. Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
Mr. Owlette?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes as well. Next up on our agenda is the Millcreek Golf and Learning Center nets. Parks and Rec Department. Mr. Owlette?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a request from Ashley Marsteller from Parks and Rec to request to replace the safety net on the south side of the driving range at Millcreek Golf and Learning. The nets are about 18 years old. They're severely torn, damaged. They're ineffective at stopping balls, and they are actually unsafe for play out on the golf course. The net replacement was included in the Parks and Rec Department capital improvement budget. The nets will be replaced by the original net designer and installer, Cross Country Cowboy Incorporated. Work would include reconstructing netting that is 800 feet long, 27 feet tall. Also includes replacing hardware anchors and support cables. The cost of the project is $38,598.42. That is $2,089.08 over the budgeted amount. The overage will be taken from the parks capital budget surplus from previous purchases from this year. A recommendation to approve the net replacement of Millcreek Golf and Learning by Cross Country Cowboy Incorporated.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Owlette. I see we have also the capital budget amendment request. Was out of order on my sheet as opposed to my computer here. I didn't know if Mr. Zaszewski, our treasurer, is also on the line. Did you want to handle the capital budget amendment request now or after we go through the request? Okay, sir. Okay, Mr. Owlette, did you you made a motion for the purchase of the nets? Okay. Do I hear a second to that?
I'll second.
Okay, I'll call for a vote. Mr. Olet?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, next up is the, also from the Millcreek Golf and Learning Center, a request for a concrete pad. Mr. Olet?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Another request from Ashley Marsteller for concrete pad to be installed in Millcreek Golf and Learning. The Parks and Rec Department requested quotes for a 10-foot by 74-foot by 4-inch concrete pad to be installed in the tee box area of the Millcreek Golf and Learning Center. The pad would all allow access for use in the range in wet conditions and for golf instruction. It was also part of the 2020 Millcreek Golf and Learning Center operator agreement. The operator will be providing turf mats and stalls for the range as well as a covered awning. Telephone quotes were solicited for this project, and the project was accounted for in the Millcreek Golf and Learning Center budget. The recommended contractor for this concrete work would be Maya Brothers Incorporated at a cost of $5,000. Mr. Chairman, I'll make that in the form of a motion for approval.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Olet. Do I hear a second?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah. Yes,
I'd
Mr.
like a clarification from our treasurer. We had discussed before, this was actually capital improvement, not budgeted. We identified funds to cover the $5,000 in capital budget.
Yes, that'll be covered in the capital budget amendments, immediately following bids and quotations. It's coming from the excess vehicle purchases.
From the Parks Department or from the township surplus overall?
Parks Department, they had two different vehicles, and they had about, I think, $11,000 in savings from the vehicles. So they're using the two for roughly $2,000 for the nets and the $5,000 for the pad.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Morgan. Call for a vote on this. Mr. Olet?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan?
Oh, yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, next up is the awarding of the Millcreek Township Sidewalk Accessibility Project, Phase 8. Ann Sokol, our township engineer, would like to handle this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The open bid for the Millcreek Township Sidewalk Accessibility Project, Phase 8 on March 25th of 2020. We received 4 bids. They are as follows. Camino Construction bid $244,849. Empire Snow Management bid $191,650. Lindy Paving bid $289,350. And Davila Concrete bid $288,744. $742. As township engineer, I recommend awarding project to Amendola Construction. Although they are not the monetary low bidder, they are the lowest responsible bidder. Pennsylvania courts have articulated a standard for determining when a bidder is the lowest responsible bidder. It is as follows. Lowest responsible bidder does not mean that such bidder is merely the lowest bidder. The word responsible includes a number of things. promptness, faithfulness, and the capacity and ability to do the work according to the plans and specifications. Men of skill must be employed in and about the work. Municipal authorities in investigating the bidders should inquire into the character of work heretofore done by them and determine whether it was safe. Every bar should be erected by municipal authorities against the dishonest contract. One who would impose inferior work or material on the city. Such work can be got through in spite of the utmost caution on the part of inspectors, engineers, and other authorities in charge of the work. Much depends on the inherent honesty of those who do the work. Now, we did a project with Empire in 2016, and they were relatively new, and I encourage new contractors to bid on our project, provided they have the adequate experience in similar work. They had done concrete work, including ramps, accessibility ramps, for some commercial sites, and I had contacted the reference. The contract was done without the contract issues we'll discuss later, but the workmanship was mediocre and the communication was a problem. I assume this would improve with more work in the municipal atmosphere. Last year, they were awarded the Sidewalk Accessibility Project Phase 7. There were numerous problems throughout the project. For example, they started work on August 1st without any notice to the township. It clearly stated they must notify the township when they work in the contract. There's a list of Saturdays I have there that they worked without notice: August 3rd, August 10th, and August 24th that we know of. Bonds were not submitted within the 10-day limit spelled out in the contract document, and they actually didn't get submitted until we took a certified letter and hand-delivered it to their office, giving them a final deadline. Over 50% of the ramp did not meet the 7-day completion requirement, which is inconsistent with the requirements of the consent decree, which states that once you open an excavation, it must be useful within 7 days. There were no ADA-approved barricades, no ADA-approved barricades were provided, even though we told them multiple times that they were required. We didn't add any additional ramps or any additional work to the contract, yet they did not meet the completion date of August 31st, for which they were charged liquidated damages. They improperly removed the survey monument after we had had several discussions with them about how to work around it and not remove it, because it's a very important part of our infrastructure. And the final item, we had a punch list at the end of the project, was not done until we called them several times. And all it needed done was some stripping of some forms and some landscaping in the area around a non-compliant area that they had to remove and replace. The finished product, although compliant, which is what we asked for, was mediocre at best. I have reached out to the references provided by Empire in this submittal, one of which was myself. I was unable to secure a favorable recommendation. And I reached out to surrounding municipalities that I knew Empire had performed contract work, so couldn't get a favorable recommendation. I know personally, as well as through the references contacted, that Empire has a history of breach of contract, lack of communication, and mediocre performance and product. It's my responsibility as the township engineer to recommend to the board the best alternative when it comes to construction contractor selection, and I take this seriously. I cannot, in good faith, recommend award of this contract to Empire Snow Management. As the board knows, Empire reached out to me over the last weekend. After careful consideration of Mr. Wessler's request, my recommendation regarding award does not change. I strongly believe that despite his intention to have a different crew with him and him acting as a supervisor, that will receive the same product. Mr. Wessler's claim that Empire Snow Management is different from Empire Construction and Demolition, who performed the work last year, is in name only. For example, last year I mentioned the liquidated damages and the monument they had to pay for. They submitted checks in payment. The checks were issued from an Empire Snow Management account. So, with all that being said, engineering recommends award to the lowest responsible bidder, Amendola Construction, for $244,849. These monies are coming from the Cdbg program, and just for reference, the engineer's estimate on the project was $250,000. Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you, Ann, for that very thorough and well-written explanation. Any further questions or comments from the board regarding this?
Nothing from me, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate Ms. Sokol's explanation. Seems clear to me that it's well-reasoned and defensible, and it would be appropriate for us to award the contract to the next responsible bidder, which would be Amendola, and I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Owlett. I'll put this to a vote. Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
Mr. Owlett?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Next, 2020.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Ann.
I just said thank you.
Okay. Next up is our 2020 milling and paving bids. Turn it over to Mr. Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On April 30th, 2020, we received sealed bids for the Millcreek Township paving program for this year. This program was broke down to an east and west project. We received 2 bids on each and are as follows. The east bid, the first one was Lindy Paving for $1,079,941.40. McCormick Construction, $1,119,215.30. The same 2 bidders for the west side contract, Lindy Paving, $1,349,592.40. McCormick Construction, $1,429,482 even. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Any questions or comments from the board on the 2020 milling and paving bids? Those will be reviewed and,
Sure.
yes. Go ahead, Mr. Owlett.
I was just going to say, as the board knows, these are a bit over budget. So I just recommend we have some further discussions and should be able to take action on the project whether with additional funds or reduction in scope by the next meeting.
Sounds good. Yes, that's the plan, to review these further in the next week or two and and hopefully award, hopefully at our next meeting. Okay, next up is a request from Police Chief Scott Height. He's requesting approval for an upgrade to the police department's Tylar record system in the amount of $1,160. This upgrade will provide officers in the field the ability to receive driver's license photos on their mobile data terminals. So this would be an upgrade for them to receive photos from PennDOT and other state Department of Transportation for use in the patrol vehicles themselves, on the mobile data terminals in the police vehicles. This fee is a one-time setup fee. I would like to put that request in the form of a motion. Are there any questions or comments regarding it, first of all? Okay, hearing none. I'll put that in the form of a motion.
I'll second that motion. Yes, I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a second. I'll call for a vote on this. Mr. Owlett?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay. Last on our bids and quotes is a mowing agreement for code enforcement. Mr. Waldinger?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, this is an agreement with Zeller Property Services to provide services to the Code Enforcement Department. This is similar to a contract that we had entered into with them last year. These are for services for neglected properties or places where code enforcement attempts to enforce property maintenance and the owner refuses for whatever reason. They have quoted us 4 different types of service that potentially could be used under this contract. The first is neglected service, would be mowing and trimming properties where the grass and weeds have not been maintained for a significant time period with growth in excess of 1 foot in height. The next is maintenance services. That's mowing and trimming of properties which have been previously maintained and have growth of less than 1 foot in height. The next is debris removal, would be removal of grass clippings, branches, other plant material debris. And the fourth is additional services, any services that may be requested depending on the type of violation that exists. The pricing schedule for this contract in 2020 for neglected services, they would be charging $40 per labor hour and could not exceed 4 labor hours in a project without approval of the township. For maintenance service, they would charge $30 per labor hour and could not exceed 2 labor hours per project without approval of the township. For debris removal, they charge $40 per labor hour, not to exceed 2 labor hours without the approval of the township. And for additional services, the charge is $40 per labor hour with the scope and limitations to be agreed on with the township prior to commencement of the project. There is a not to exceed price for total services in 2020 of $4,000 with Zeller Property Services. And I would like to note that if these services are used against a non-compliant property, the charges for these services are billed back to the property owner to be paid as part of the violation.
Thank you, Mr. Waldinger. Any questions or comments on this from the board? Is there a motion to approve this contract with Zeller Property Services and the pricing schedule as stated?
So moved.
And I will second.
Okay. I have a second on that as well. Call for a vote on this. Mr. Owlett?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, we have some capital budget amendment request. Turn this over to Mark Zaszewski, our treasurer.
Okay, these are, we got the two requests, we'll probably just should take them together as one,
Okay.
rather than doing each one individually. The first one is replacing the range netting at the Golf and Learning Center. The budgeted amount was $36,503. The bid or quote amount was $38,592.08, leaving a shortfall of $2,089.03. The Parks and Rec Department had a surplus from their replacement of service vehicles of $23,980, and they're proposing using the $2,089.08 of that amount for the net project, and then leaving a balance of $21,890.92 in reserve. And then we go to the concrete pad. That wasn't budgeted as a capital item, so it has no budget and requires $5,000. The replacement truck reserve carryover $21,890.92 is going to be used to cover the cost of the pad, leaving a balance in the reserve of $16,890.92. It would be my recommendation to make these amendments to our capital budget to allow these projects to continue to go forward.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Any questions or comments from the board regarding these capital budget amendment requests?
I'll make a motion to approve the capital budget amendments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
I will second.
Okay, and we have a second. I'll call for a vote. Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
Mr. Owlett?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes on this. Okay, next up on our agenda is Resolution 2020 R27, a resolution amending Resolution 2020 R22 to extend the disaster emergency declaration within Millcreek Township. Turn this over to Attorney Mark Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In addition to extending the disaster emergency declaration, it also adopts various policies of Millcreek Township regarding COVID-19. As indicated, the resolution extends the township's emergency declaration through June 9 of 2020, which is the date of the supervisor's first meeting in June, and authorizes execution of the county emergency declaration form. Although Erie has been designated to be in the yellow phase by the governor, his order and guidance makes clear that the Commonwealth's emergency declaration remains in effect. This resolution also cancels all reservations at township facilities by private parties until further notice. This replaces the previous reservation cancellation policy, which was going to expire on May 22 of 2020. This resolution allows the prior township policy that waived the need for doctors' excuses for sick time under the collective bargaining agreement to expire. It also allows the prior township policy that allowed sick time to be used as family sick time to care for a member of your household to expire. Note that this does not impact anything required under the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act and the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Act that were passed by Congress. The township will continue to comply with the requirements of these two federal laws. If you recall, we had implemented those policies prior to the time when Congress had passed that act. This resolution also allows the prior township travel policy, imposing reporting of travel plans and quarantine requirements if employees traveled outside of Erie County to expire. And then under this resolution, the Board of Supervisors is adopting the COVID-19 Township Operations Policy, which includes a mask policy and a policy outlining procedures to be followed if there is a probable or confirmed COVID-19 case within the township buildings. The operation policy requires the appointment of a pandemic safety officer and outlines what requirements must be followed by employees while working. It also sets various occupancy limits for various locations within the township buildings. Under this resolution, the Board of Supervisors also directs that the recommendation for temporary improvements that are contained in the draft Municipal Facilities Reopening Work Group May 2020 report and recommendations be completed. And under this resolution, the reduction in operations level of the Millcreek Township Continuity Plan shall end at 12:01 a.m. on Monday, May 18th, 2020. This means that all township employees will be expected to report to work on that date. This does not mean, however, that the township building will be open to the public, as that will remain closed to the public. Lastly, the resolution amends the suspension of right to know responses effective May 18 of 2020 to indicate the request will be processed to the best of the ability of the township, but continue to recognize that the building remains closed and that the time period to response will not begin to run.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
And that's all I have.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board regarding this?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank Mark Shaw, our solicitor, and Matt Waldinger, our Director of Planning and Development, for all the hard work they've done and leading the effort to put these procedures and policies together, and also recognize the work of our Facilities Maintenance Bureau, our Chief Jerry Berger and his team for doing the best they can to keep our building safe and make those improvements that we need. So I just want to commend our team for all the work they've done, and especially also recognize the effort our team has put forward throughout the building to keep our operations moving, even with these reduced staff, even though with reduced staff in the building. So just want to recognize those folks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Do I hear a motion to approve Resolution 2020-R27, which incorporates also various township policies that have been updated?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I have a motion on that. Is there a second?
I will second.
Okay, I'll call for a vote on this. Mr. Owlett?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I may interrupt for just a second. In the Township's operation policy, the supervisors are required to appoint a pandemic safety officer for the administration building, and I would, I guess, recommend that that be done at this meeting as well.
Okay. I believe we discussed, I'll make a motion to appoint, I believe Jerry Berger is who we discussed to be the pandemic safety officer for the building.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Owlett. Call for a vote on this. Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
Mr. Owlett?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes on that. Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Okay, next is Resolution 2020-R28, a resolution to implement provisions of Act 15 of 2020 relating to property tax relief. Attorney Shaw.
Yes, as you indicated, this resolution implements the provisions of Act 15 of 2020, which allows municipalities to grant property tax relief in the form of waiving all interest and penalties if the municipal taxes are paid on or before December 31 of 2020, even though the due date may be earlier. I'm noting that this resolution and tax relief would apply only to the Millcreek Township portion of the property tax bill. If you recall, earlier this month, the county adopted a similar provision for the county portion of the tax bill. I do not know if the school district has passed a similar resolution. I would note that to be effective, once this resolution is passed, that the township secretary must deliver a copy of the executed resolution to the tax collector no later than May 20 of 2020.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shaw. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, do I hear a motion to approve Resolution 2020 R28?
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman.
And I will second.
Okay, I will call for a vote. Mr. Owlett?
Oh, yes.
Mr. Morgan?
Oh, yes.
And I also vote yes. Next up, Resolution 2020 R29, a resolution adopting Millcreek Township's Community Development Block Grant, Cdbg, Citizen Participation Plan. Mr. Waldinger?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, as you mentioned, this resolution does adopt our new citizen participation plan. As you know, Millcreek Township is in what's known as an entitlement community. That means that we receive an annual allocation of community development block grant funds from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. We are required, as part of that, the Cdbg program, to develop and follow a plan for citizen participation. We have updated our plan with the help of the Erie County Department of Planning. We've included updates to our 5-year consolidated plan, our annual action plan, our consolidated annual performance and evaluation report, our any substantial amendments to plans, and analysis of impediments to fair housing. As I mentioned, that's all been done in cooperation with the Erie County Department of Planning and Community Development, who administers this program for us. So the adoption of this resolution will supersede our any previous Cdbg citizen participation plans, which have previously been adopted by the township. So I would recommend that the township or that the Board of Supervisors approve this update to our citizen participation plan.
Thank you, Mr. Waldinger. Any questions or comments on this resolution? Do I hear a motion to approve Resolution 2020 R29?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
And I will second.
Okay, we do have a second. Thank you. Call for a vote. Mr. Owlett?
Oh, yes.
Mr. Morgan?
Oh, yes.
And I also vote yes. Next up, Resolution 2020 R30, a resolution pursuant to Resolution 2015 R20 in the Municipal Records Manual to approve proposed disposition of certain township records. This is our pretty much our standard request. This would be for disposition of Millcreek Police Department dash cam videos between May 13th, 2020 and May 26th, 2020. Do I hear a motion to approve Resolution 2020 R30?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
I'll call for a vote. Mr. Owlett?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, next is a site access agreement with Lake Erie Region Conservancy. Wilkins Run Stream Restoration.
Mr. Chairman, you missed one item, Resolution 2020 R31.
Oh, okay. Yes, I did. Thank you. Okay, this is a 2020 R31, a resolution to approve application for county aid from the County Liquid Fuels Fund for 2020 for bridge inspections. And is that Mr. Zaszewski that's handling that, or?
Yes.
Okay.
This is a process for through PennDOT for accessing liquid fuels monies that are allocated to the county. Earlier this year, we did a similar resolution for the monies that set aside that we use for road salt. There's also monies every year set aside for bridge inspections. We've got a total of $7,035.68 allocated. We're requesting at this time $1,407.14, which is the amount of the inspection cost for 2 of the bridges. The township owns a total of 7 bridges, and so therefore they need to be periodically inspected, and the liquid fuels monies are set to help in that effort. So I recommend that the application be approved and forwarded to the county for their approval so that we may receive the monies for the bridge inspections.
Mr. Zaszewski, I'm just trying to clarify. So the county informed us of this new procedure for bridge inspections?
Actually, is our municipal representative from PennDOT, Josh Montgomery.
But I guess what I'm trying to get is we're not actually being invoiced for bridge inspection. This is the county reimbursing us what the state withholds from us, right?
I have to go back.
We don't have a contract with any bridge inspectors. The bridge inspection program is managed by the county. No, I'm not asking. I'm bored. That's how this.
That's my understanding as well, Mr. Morgan. Yes.
So I guess I'm a little confused at what this new procedure is from Mr. Montgomery. Because this is not something we've done this for, requesting funds from the county for us to get road salt, yes, but we've never requested funds from the county to pay for bridge inspections because we don't have a bridge inspector. So that's why I'm curious. I know we discovered that the state was withholding our liquid fuels funds erroneously, and I'm wondering if this is how this is their method for reimbursing us those funds that the county is obliged to pay, not the municipality. And I'm also curious where the 1,000 came from instead of just requesting the full reimbursement of the costs.
county aid application for reimbursement of the Echo Hill Road Arch Culvert and Stonebridge Road bridge inspections that the county is willing to reimburse. Please add the application signed by the supervisors at the May 12th meeting and email a copy so I can prompt this.
Mr. Walding, are you still on the call?
Yes, I am.
Is Ann Sokol still on the call?
That would
I am, and I
be the
think I
person who
just
may
heard
have an
it.
answer.
I have an answer.
Okay.
Those two bridges were discovered after the first 7. They've been added on. They were inspected. And now they're going to be added on for the yearly or every 2-year inspection. The first one, I think they went out and inspected first. All you're doing, I think, by signing that is adding them onto our list of inspectable structures.
Were we invoiced for those inspections, Ann?
We received no invoice, no.
Okay.
I think what Mark said is, the letter said they're willing to pay for this as long as you sign them up. They meet all the criteria of a bridge that is to be inspected by the county.
Okay, so this action isn't to reimburse us funds, it's to authorize the county to expend the funds?
I believe so. That's how I read it. Because we never wrote that anybody at Chester never received any invoice, at least across my desk, regarding inspection of any structure, because we wouldn't have paid it.
And this is Jim. I have a question about the amount too as well. It appears that it's the allocation requested is roughly 20% of the total estimated project cost. Does anybody have an answer as to why that amount is requested?
Yeah, Jim, yeah, the bridge inspections are covered 80% by federal funds.
Okay.
So the 20% is what PennDOT requires for a local match. And the reason I'm asking these questions is historically, I used to manage that program for the county. Historically, the county has covered that 20% match on behalf of municipalities and managed the program on behalf of municipalities. When I took office a few years ago, I discovered that PennDOT was actually charging us directly for it by withholding funds from our liquid fuels allocation. So I brought that up to the county at the time. So that's why I'm curious if this is a method for the county to reimburse us the municipal fuels fund that has been withheld from the state, because essentially the county and the state have a new arrangement for the inspection program. Previously, the county hired a consultant. The county paid the bill, and the county requested the 80% reimbursement from PennDOT. In recent years, PennDOT has taken over the contracting of the inspections, and then they instead of PennDOT reimbursing the local entity 80%, PennDOT fronts the costs and requests and takes the 20% reimbursement from the local entity.
Mm-hmm.
But their procedure is not to take it from the county, which is what a countywide agreement states. Their procedure, because it's how they do things, is they bill it, they withhold it from each individual municipality with the fuels allocation. And then we have to somehow get the county to give us back that 20% that they agreed to pay. So that's why I'm questioning this whole procedure, and I would have liked to have discussed it before the meeting, I suppose, to get clarification on it.
So John, in your experience, this is a new requirement here for us?
I've never been aware of it before, but I haven't managed the program in 5 years, so.
Okay.
sure changes have happened, but I guess I'm not clear on what, if what Ms. Sokol was saying is this is simply authorizing the county to inspect our bridge, okay, but Mr. Zakcheski is indicating this is an action to request reimbursement for costs to us, which are two different things that I'm a little confused about.
Well, is this something we may want to table until the next meeting, till we get clarification?
Well, Mr. Zakcheski, is Ms. Sokol's explanation, does that make sense to you? Is this a reimbursement of funds to us, or an authorization of the county to add the structures to their inspection list?
My understanding is a reimbursement to us from the county, well, by the county through PennDOT. Because then ultimately the check could be cut by the county. Because I know when we get the road salt money, the county cuts us the check.
I know that the two bridges that are named on it were just added last summer. I never received a report, bridge inspection report on either.
Okay.
Maybe we should call it out. Flash or whoever penned the letter.
It was Josh Montgomery. He was the one that sent the resolution. That's actually a resolution form that you see in front of you. It's an MS 339.
Okay.
If you'd like to table it, we need more information for the next meeting.
Mr. Owlette, did you have any questions or concerns about it? I personally, I think I would like further clarification. I mean, just to, just to get some clarification on this.
I agree with you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Yeah, guys, the only thing I have to look at is the actual application, which has no real detail on what we're doing. So, yeah, I'd like to discuss this a little further.
Okay. Do we need a do we need a motion?
Well, Mr. Walder and I are going to be at a meeting, engaged in a meeting with the county tomorrow. We can ask for clarification on that at that time.
Okay. So we'll table this until till our next meeting.
You'll need a motion, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'll make the motion to table.
I'll second.
Okay. I'll call for a vote on that motion. Mr. Owlette?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan?
Vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay. Next up is the site access agreement with Lake Erie Region Conservancy for the Wilkins Run stream restoration. Mr. Shaw?
Yes, this is an access agreement that's tied to the CEC agreement that was approved earlier in this meeting. This will allow our contractor CEC to go onto the Wilkins Run property to perform the survey work they need to do to complete the design. The property owner is the Lake Erie Regional Conservancy, and I believe they've already signed the documents. We will ultimately need a formal easement once the design is completed, and we know what areas would need to be included in that easement. that I would recommend approval of this access agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Do I hear a motion to approve this site access agreement?
Make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a second. I'll call for a vote. Mr. Owlett?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan?
Oh, yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, next up we have an easement agreement, Wager Road Storm Drainage Swale. Mr. Shaw, you're handling that as well?
Yes, this is an easement agreement with the Erie County Conservation District. It's to allow the Township Sewer Department to do some work that needs to be done to protect the Bundy Sanitary Sewer Pump Station from stormwater and erosion.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board on this easement agreement? If not, I'll ask for a motion on this.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, I'll call for a vote on this. Mr. Owlett?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Next on our agenda, General Partitions Letter of Credit. Mr. Waldinger?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, General Partitions on Peninsula Drive has an open letter of credit with the township in the amount of $10,000 for land development that they completed, but have not satisfactorily finished the stormwater management required. We were notified by their lending institution that they were not renewing the letter of credit with the township. It would expire on May 20th. At this time, we are in discussions with General Partitions to replace the letter of credit in order to keep the township protected. They either need to replace the security with another $10,000 security or finish the project before the expiration of their letter of credit, which is May 20th. So I would like to ask the board's approval for the Planning and Development Department and the Township Solicitor to proceed to pull the existing letter of credit, this PNC letter of credit 00-92080, which expires on May 20th, if we have not been able to replace it or have the project complete before the expiration date.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Waldinger. Any questions or comments from the board regarding this? Okay. Do I hear a motion on this request?
I'll make a motion to approve the request.
I'll second.
Okay. Call for a vote on this matter. Mr. Owlett?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Next is a professional services agreement with Forward Planning. Mr. Waldinger?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. As the board knows, the township has been in discussions with Forward Planning since late last year. Forward Planning frequently works with Mackin Engineering, who is the consultant that is currently rewriting our zoning and subdivision and land development codes. The services that Forward Planning provide are marketing and financial analyses of certain areas to help recommend what types of businesses could be profitable or could flourish in an area. We had intended to use the information that they provided for certain targeted areas in the township, namely the Gateway to Presque Isle and the West 26th Street and Terratania intersections, where we would like to see redevelopment occur. We were prepared to enter into an agreement with Forward Planning at the beginning of March, when obviously the COVID-19 pandemic flourished, and the approval of the contract was kind of stalled because everybody had reduced their operation. In further discussions with principal of Forward Planning, it was suggested that in light of COVID-19 and the potential financial impacts that are to come down the road, that the township amend the scope of this market study to not only target the Gateway and 26th and Peninsula, but to look at the township as a whole comprehensively, to make recommendations as to what may be necessary in the future to help support businesses, and how those recommendations can be incorporated into the new zoning and land development code. At this time, I would like to recommend that the township enter into a contract for market conditions study with Forward Planning of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in the amount of $41,000. This is a budget expense in the Planning and Development Capital Improvements account, and in addition, up to 50% of this contract may be reimbursable through the township's current STMP grant.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Waldinger. Any questions or comments from the board regarding this?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to again thank Mr. Waldinger for his work on this. I think this is an important element of the zoning and development code update. It's also part of our recommendation in the Grace Millcreek Comprehensive Plan. So I think it's an appropriate next step for us to move forward with implementing our plan for the township.
Thank you, I agree. Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the professional services agreement with Forward Planning in the amount of $41,800?
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Call for a vote on this. Mr. Owlett?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Moving on, communications. Treasurer Communications, Mr. Zachewski.
Nothing further at this time.
Thank you. We have a seasonal staff hiring request, Parks and Recreation Department. Mr. Owlett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Request from Ashley Marsteller to bring back 4 seasonal employees to the Parks and Rec Department. These are the same employees that we had on board last year. Their tasks include mowing, trimming, garbage and recycle collection, mulching, cleaning and sanitizing the park areas and facilities. All township recommended health and safety protocols and procedures will be reviewed and observed by these employees in addition to the rest of the park staff. So I'll make the motion to approve the 4 seasonal employees for their rehire effective today.
Okay, do I hear a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Call for a vote. Mr. Owlett?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Next, Millfair Compost Center and recycling announcements. Mr. Owlett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now we have a couple of announcements. Effective yesterday, the Millcreek portion of the Millfair Compost Center resumed normal operations. The center is open Monday through Thursday from 8 to 5 p.m., Fridays and Saturdays from 9 to 5, and Sundays from noon to 5. Millcreek, Fairview, and West County residents can drop off their organic materials for free. There's a whole list of items that are accepted there. We ask that the customers wear a mask and maintain social distancing of 6 feet while at the compost center. The next announcement is the Millcreek Tire Collection and Paper Shred Day that was scheduled for this coming Saturday for Millcreek Township residents has been postponed until Saturday, August 15th, 2020. And the times for that will be from 9 until noon, and that's open to the Millcreek Township residents with driver's license and or a mill fare permit. Information regarding that announcement can be found on the Millcreek Township website. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman, for those announcements.
Okay, thank you,
If
Mr.
I could,
Arlett.
Mr. Arlett, I think there was one additional announcement regarding the postponement of the spring leaf collection week.
You are correct. Thank you, Mr. Shaw. The curbside leaf collection was scheduled for the week of May 4th, has been rescheduled for the week of June 8th. The particulars for the leaf collection can also be found on the Township's website at millcreektownship.com.
Thank you, Mr. Arlett. Okay, we have an announcement here that the Millcreek Township's 2020 4th of July parade is canceled for this year. I'm sure you'll be seeing further media releases and news on this item, but we'd just like to give an announcement here that the 4th of July parade for this year has been canceled. Didn't know if Mr. Arlett or Mr. Morgan wanted to add anything to that, or that pretty much covers it.
Mr. Chairman, it's we've been doing the parade here for 55 years, and I don't know that there's been any year that it's been canceled, or maybe due to a severe weather event at some point. But when you're bringing 30,000 people together, it's real tough to maintain any kind of distancing, and I have to agree with the parade committee's recommendation on this. It's the right thing to do.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Arlett.
I was to add, again, the parade committee, Gillette said this has been an independent event that the parade committee has done exceptional work on all these years, and I think we want to make points that we appreciate them working with our township staff, including Ashley Marsteller, our Parks and Rec director, to try and figure out if there are any possible alternative celebration ideas that could be done. And I know it was a hard decision for the parade committee to make, but I agree with Mr. Arlett. I agree with the committee. I think it's part of the right call this year, and we hope that we'll be able to come back strong next year.
Very good. Okay, our executive sessions were held April 21st through the 24th, April 27th through the 30th, and May 4th through the 8th, May 11th, and May 12th of 2020 to discuss various township business. Solicitor communications, anything further, Mr. Shaw?
Nothing further on my end.
Okay. Citizens to be heard. We'll now take requests if anyone would like to call in to 833-1111, extension 380. Citizens to be heard. Anyone would like to call in, you can dial that number now. Okay. We've given 2-minute call-in period. We did not receive any calls. Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Okay. I'll second that, and
I'll second.
Okay, a second from Mr. Morgan, and our May 12th, 2020 Township meeting is adjourned. Thank you.